Today on the Travel Magazine, join us as we travel to Anchorage, Alaska. But first, to Mennonite country in Ontario, Canada. Elmira, St. Jacobs, and Elora offer you an opportunity to experience firsthand the diverse cultural backgrounds which have made this region so unique and distinctive. Hi, I'm Jake de Boer.
And I am Mieke de Boer, and welcome to this edition of the Travel Magazine.
The picturesque towns and villages were originally founded by Mennonite settlers. Many have maintained that original way of life, and the horse-drawn baggage you see along the way are a common sight on country roads.
We're just a little bit over an hour out of Toronto by main highway, a very quick highway. However, if you want to take the back roads, you can stretch that out as much as you want to enjoy the rural experiences.
Why should people come to this area for the weekend or for a 4 or 5 day visit during the week?
I think a lot of people come and enjoy it as a getaway, as a real getaway from the standpoint of the stress. We all lead hectic lives this day and age, and people are looking for a chance to get away from it all. A chance to come out and maybe look at the way it used to be. You know, the whole idea of heritage, seeing Mennonite farms without hydro, seeing Mennonites in buggies, and seeing the old type of shop and boutique. It's an opportunity to take us back. It's an opportunity we see a lot of people today too wanting to share with their children, because young people never knew this.
Mennonites originated in Germany and Switzerland and then went to Holland, and that's where Menno Simons was, and the Mennonite church is named after him. From there then they came to Pennsylvania and then to Ontario. The philosophy of Mennonites and where they differ a little from other Protestant groups is in a few areas. One, we generally don't participate in the military. The other is in baptism. We believe in a believer's church, and so people aren't baptized until they have their own faith. The Mennonite life here is varied in this particular area. We've got a number of different groups in the area, from very conservative to very modern Mennonites. A lot of people come here and they're interested in the Old Order or the Old Order Amish groups, because they're the ones that drive the horse and buggy. Their lifestyle is quite different. A lot of them are on the farm and will do their work with horses and that type of thing.
St. Jacobs is a picturesque little village nestled along the Conestoga River. It's got a number of unique features: the historic Snyder Flour Mill and the silos, one of the early developments. Got the old Farmers Inn. There's now Benjamin's Restaurant and Inn, dates back to 1852. St. Jacobs Farmers Market is one of the major attractives in our community, and there's probably 450 vendors there. Many of them farmers bring their local produce and wares to the public, and a lot of craftspeople and flea market type of vendors as well. So it really is quite an attraction. One of the other features in the village is the blacksmith shop.
most people, when they come in here, they're dumbfounded that an industry or a craft of this type still exists. They think it's actually been abandoned, but in truth, blacksmithing and forge work in general are still essential to the civilization, because there's techniques that we can do to make things that there's no other way to make them. You could take a blacksmith out of a shop, say 1,000 years ago or longer, transport them in time into this shop here, take them about an hour to get used to the equipment with the electric motors and the slight improvements that we've made over that period of time.
Part of the building is occupied by a broom maker, Hamel Broom, and he displays how brooms are made the old-fashioned way.
This is the Hamel Broom Shop in St. Jacobs, and we manufacture corn brooms. The winder is an old, about 50 years old, and it winds the bristles on the handle, and the bristle that we use is actually real corn. Then the next machine is a scraper, and it has metal teeth in it, and it scrapes the loose bristles and seeds out of the broom. And then our sewing machine sews the stitching on, and it's the newest machine we have. It's dated 1947, that's when we first got it. Then we cut the end off with our guillotine, and that makes a nice straight cut. A good broom should always stand up.
Well, I think of all the places in Ontario, that this area has a lot of variety to offer. It has a way of life to offer. It has quaint little restaurants, boutiques, people making quilts, and all kinds of little things like that.
For people coming to the village, there's a half a dozen bed and breakfasts. There's 28 Albert, and a number of other guest houses, some in the village and some on farms surrounding the village.
Bed and breakfasts have become increasingly popular, particularly with our European visitors, but the bed and breakfasts around here, right in the village and around it, allow everyone the opportunity to enjoy the village itself, rural life, and of course you get to know the culture and the heritage of the community because you're staying right with a family. So it's just a great way to get away.
We will be back with more of the Travel Magazine just after this, so stay with us.
The area is not only known for its Mennonite population, but also for its spectacular unspoiled scenery.
Elora is a unique village that's situated along the banks of the Grand River, one of Canada's newest heritage rivers, with a population of approximately 3,200 people. Mill Street and Metcalfe Streets are our main shopping district. We've preserved a lot of its character with the limestone buildings. We have a very unique shopping district, which is one of our big attractions in town.
I really enjoy walking here in Elora. You know, there are so many craft stores and so many artists here.
And you can just go in from one store to another. And I love the gorge and the waterfall, and the Elora Mill Inn is a very unique place to stay in.
The Elora Mill Inn is a country inn that's been restored from its original working mill, and unfortunately it was destroyed by fire as a mill, and so it's been completely restored as one of Ontario's finest country inns.
Just a couple of kilometers away in West Montrose, there's the West Montrose covered bridge. And some people call it the Kissing Bridge, and it really is the only remaining covered bridge in Ontario.
town of Elmira, in my opinion, is a fairly typical small rural Ontario town. Elmira's biggest difference, I suppose, is the presence of the Mennonite community here, particularly the Old Order Mennonites. They're the visible Mennonites, the ones who drive horse and buggies and live in the traditional way that they've lived pretty much since they settled here, I suppose. The presence of the Mennonites in this community is, I think, an asset, and I think most residents of Elmira would see the Mennonites as an asset. They are hardworking, industrious, they contribute to the general life, and their presence influences the kind of life we have in Elmira.
The story of quilt making was to use up your leftover materials that you had left from sewing dresses. People used to sew their own dresses and aprons and things, and so there's always leftover pieces.
Coming from the Old Order Mennonites, that's where I come from. And so if this was just a common thing, when you're 14, you stop school, and then you're supposed to start making quilts. Mother would teach us. She told us how to, and then we just start to make a few stitches, and they didn't look too great. But after you did it for a little while, you got to do a little bit better.
I had built up this business in Wallenstein for I don't know how many years, maybe 15 for sure. Then when we moved out here, my daughter took the business to her home. So that's where you go if you want to see more than one quilt.
Quilts is something that's very old, but basically quilts are used for warmth. They use them as blankets. Quilts have become much more of an art and a showpiece over the last years. They're much more than just a cover that you would use to keep warm. Much more they have become a quilt for a top of a bed, and we've much more work at a design by color and by pattern. So we would work with different colors in a quilt, often 2 or 3, and then match them together so they make a beautiful piece to put on top of your bed rather than covered up with some other spread that we used to do years ago.
Doll making has become one of the second largest hobbies in North America, right behind stamps and coins right now. We're sort of reliving the past. We had these things, and some of us didn't have them as children, and now we would like to have them as heirlooms to pass on to our grandchildren.
I think with the communities that we've just been talking about, Jake, the real element of it that I find so intriguing and so inviting is the whole idea of the culture, the heritage. It's an area that is very strong in the work ethic. You have the Mennonite community, the German heritage and that throughout the area. And it's just such a warm and delightful place to be.
The story of this great land started in 1882 when cries of gold echoed throughout this region. Join us in Anchorage, Alaska. Visit Alyeska Resort and see the world's busiest seaplane harbor. Explore the city that has become Alaska's largest commercial and transportation center. Nestled between the mountains and the sea, Anchorage is a thriving city in the heart of Alaska's wilderness. It is a city with a rich natural history carved by glaciers and volcanoes that offers visitors unlimited possibilities to explore.
Anchorage is kind of a town that started out as kind of a mining camp railroad town, and slowly but surely developed into a fairly metropolitan city with lots of fine hotels and restaurants. But it's still comparatively new compared to other parts of the world because it's less than 100 years old. It's about 75 years old. So you see the older buildings, the newer buildings. It's a combination of different aspects.
And only in Anchorage could you find yourself sharing the roads with planes. Todd, we were at the harbor here yesterday, and we have Rust's planes coming and going constantly.
It's a busy place, isn't it? This is the world's largest seaplane base, the biggest and busiest base in the world. It's the Anchorage International Airport. Probably 300 or 400 float planes based here. And Rust is one of the operations, probably the oldest operation on Lake Hood. We've been here for 34 years.
So what do you do exactly?
Well, the main part of our business is fishing. We have tremendous runs of salmon here, as well as rainbow trout and grayling and pike fishing. And so we're really busy running fishermen back and forth from Anchorage out into the backcountry areas.
How do you like this, Meg?
You know, this is incredible. To bike here, this is a beautiful resort area.
Situated at the foot of the mountains is the luxurious Alyeska Resort. What is there for people to do in summertime?
Summertime actually is our peak period, really, besides, of course, going up our beautiful tramway up to the top of the mountain, either for hiking or for lunching or dining. We have some great trails. One is taking off right here from the hotel called Winter Creek Trail.
Glacier, just 45 miles south of downtown Anchorage, is the most visited attraction in all of Alaska.
There's a cruise that goes out, about an hour cruise. It goes within 10 to 30 feet of the glacier. So you get a very close view of this beautiful glacier surrounded by wilderness, and then you can come home and still have a great salmon dinner.
During this cruise, we're going to be explaining a little bit about glaciers, how they're made, number one, how they move, number two, and how they create this spectacular rainforest you see all around you in the Chugach National Forest. Now, as I said earlier, we're in a nice sunny day. Normally we get lots and lots of rain. In the Portage Valley, about 60 to 80 inches of rain per year. Now, up high on those mountain peaks, that's going to equate to about 100 feet of snow. Might make it easier for you to understand if you consider a glacier a river of ice. It flows like a river, just a little slower, down the mountainside, to create this huge, amazing structure in front of your eyes. And if you look real close on this bedrock in front of us, you'll start to see some white lines coming down. Those are quartz veins, and gold is usually associated with those quartz veins, so if you're looking for gold, you're going to be looking for those white lines in the Greywalkie. You might find some gold in them hills.
There is still plenty of gold in Alaska, and you can usually keep all the gold you find.
Well, when you first put your gravel in there, it's muddy.
Yeah.
So the first step is washing your dirt, and you clean everything. Make sure all your rocks are shiny. You shake it flat, the gold's on the bottom. You tip your pan at an angle, the gold slides to the lowest point, okay? This material is garbage.
I'm not professional, but...
Yeah, you did pretty good. Quite a few in there. Good job.
What's the biggest nugget you have found?
The biggest one I've ever found was about that big, a little over an ounce.
Really?
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of tourists find them that big or bigger, but not very often.
What kind of temperatures do you have in February, March, April?
Well, that's, I'm glad you asked, because a lot of time Alaska is being perceived as all one big icebox and cold and dark and so on. And really, we are in south central Alaska. We're lying along the ocean, and we get comparatively mild temperatures, milder than the Midwest and the East Coast 90% of the time. And so the average temperature in, I would say, in midwinter, January, February, March, is around 20-25 degrees. And normally it is quite mild, whereas the Arctic and the interior Alaska in the winter gets quite cold. But Alaska is very big, and this part is fairly mild.
Anchorage offers all the amenities that you want in any major city, but its advantage is we're surrounded by Alaska. You've got wilderness that you've never seen before, and you can come in that night, stay in a 4-diamond hotel. Next day you can be on a river rafting trip, you can be flight seeing. So we sort of got the best of both worlds here. Most people want to come back. When they visit Anchorage and they visit Alaska, usually the first thing they say is, gee, I want to live here, and certainly want to come back.
Are you enjoying Anchorage?
Jake, I enjoy this very much, and you know, Alaska is spectacular.
Oh, you know what? I see some native art. Let's go in.
Good. Look at this piece.
Well, you know, the native artwork, the carvings in Alaska have always fascinated me. And you know, I like shopping and looking at things, but this has really been always of great interest. This particular piece that we're looking at, this is an ivory carving, and this is a walrus jawbone that it is sitting on, and it is, well, it's incredible for as far as I'm concerned.
I think the best thing about Anchorage is it's a modern city, and yet you can get in a floatplane, and 5 minutes later you can be in a roadless backcountry Alaska. It's that close, and that's the thing that really impresses me. That's what I like.
Spectacular, huh?
Wonderful.
Well, that's it for this edition of the Travel Magazine. I'm Jake de Boer.
And I'm Mieke de Boer, and join us again as we travel the world.